Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 131. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation Day. We actually have a pretty busy show. I know we were kind of debating Monday, should we just wait till Friday, but the calendar, the news cycle is filled up pretty quickly. We got quite a bit to talk about today.
Yeah, yet to be made official news, but enough of that's kind of happened since we were on Monday, and we didn't. Look, you never know what you're going to wake up to. Some days when you do this here, and the last couple of days have been kind of newsworthy, if you will. A lot of transactions, or a lot of forthcoming transactions, a lot of different rabbit holes as far as talking points we can go down. So. This won't be a long show today, but we've got a little bit to cover, and we'll get a couple of emails here at the end of it.
Let's start with the one piece of official news, at least official by Wednesday morning, and that was announced yesterday. The Pittsburgh Steelers have claimed former Arizona Cardinals defensive lineman Manny Jones off of waivers and he's replacing, I should say, Renell Wren, who was placed on injured reserve, ending his season apparently due to an injury suffered at some point, I would imagine, relatively recently. So Jones was waived by the Arizona Cardinals on May 15th after their rookie minicamp. I guess the thought is Steeler fans wanted a former Arizona Cardinals defensive lineman. It was not J.J. Watt, but you're going to have to deal and accept Manny Jones instead.
Yeah, it makes you kind of wonder when that injury happened with Wren. He wasn't one of the ones at the
correct. He was not at rookie minicamp.
Right, at rookie minicamp there. So hard to know for sure what injury that was with him. But for a player to have to get moved to IR at this point of the offseason, you have to think it's pretty serious injury within that, or else they would have just let him heal up, between now and training camp and all. And thus, that with them being down a defensive lineman body, that I think it's easy to read into it that was the reason that they made the claim of Manny Jones off waivers from the Cardinals there to give them to fill basically that roster spot, if you will. So, you swap out one young, inexperienced player for another young, inexperienced player. But I think that's that move in a nutshell. I think really the most one of the curious things related to this now is you already have a player on IR at this point of the offseason. Now, Renell Wren will go to IR on a split salary, lower salary cost. But if he's still on the roster come week one, that will obviously count against the salary cap there. And, during the offseason, I've learned to start trying to budget, a certain amount of cap dollars for this team to have on IR. And I think this year I have that number budgeted out. Let me pull up my chart here real quick. $3 million estimated I have in this team having to account for in IR. So we already have, and it doesn't sound like he's going to be coming off IR anytime soon. And if this is kind of one of those long-term injuries, he'll probably open the season on IR. So there's already 400,000+ in that category there. So yeah, you hate to hear it. Guy didn't even make it to training camp. Renell Wren was, a long shot to make the 53-man roster anyway, but he was on the practice squad last year. So yeah, just unfortunate news this time of year. And one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity, and that's the case with Manny Johnson.
Very true.
Manny Jones.
Well, yeah, very true. We'll always have the one snap Renell Wren played last year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was like a random third and short or fourth and short type snap. And so he got in there for officially one game. I know that during this phase of the offseason, there are some limited on-field work the whole team can do. So maybe Wren, tore something while he was at the facility. I don't know details what the nature of the injury is, but on Manny Jones, second-year player, rookie last year, undrafted out of Colorado State, signed with Arizona, has appeared a little bit in the NFL. I think he had 59 snaps last season for the Cardinals, mostly late in the year, had 10 tackles. So if there's an upside, here's something to talk about with Manny Jones. He's not the biggest guy, the longest guy in the world, but he does bring a little bit of game day experience.
Yeah, I haven't gone deep into his film. I think we've got a film room coming on him, though, don't we?
Yes, at some point soon.
All right, so I just looked at a couple of snaps of his, and he was able to sack Malik Willis, I think, last year during the preseason there, but 50 something snaps isn't a lot. He came out of what? Colorado State, right? And was he the one that broke the Joey Porter record or sack record or something?
He had a bunch of tackles for loss. He only had 13
it.
or so sacks. So if he broke anything, it would have been the TFLs. But I don't know for a fact if that is true.
All right, that might be what I came across there real quick. Okay, I'm looking at 2021, early in September 2021. This tackle for loss moves Manny Jones, to ninth all time with 28 TFLs at Colorado State with the great Joey Porter. So that was in 2001. It tied him at ninth. That's what you get for not reading thoroughly there. But evidently had a pretty decent career at Colorado State there.
Yeah, he was a 5-year guy, but decent production overall. Again, obviously, like Wren, it's going to be a long shot to crack this defensive line room on the 53, which frankly has seen a lot of changes too. Not in starters, at least in terms of Hayward and Ogunjobi, but basically everywhere else. And so, he'd be a guy competing for a practice squad spot, trying to fight and survive. Again, the good news is there are no cut downs throughout camp this year. It's from 90 to 53 at the end of the season or end of the preseason. And so Jones will have as many chances as possible to prove himself.
Then bring back one more preseason game, right?
You and me both. We're the last two guys saying that.
Yeah, we probably are. But if you're going, and we're obviously fans of them holding off the long cut day like that. But in the meantime, you'd like to see these guys get an extra game. Now the vets probably obviously say no, that's that's too many games, but
they don't play anyway in those games.
They don't, right? And I'm sure the younger guys would like one more opportunity to try to show what they have on the field. But anyway, that's a podcast for another day, or a terrible take for another day.
All right, so that's the news on Wren and Jones. I know we're kind of burying the lead here, but I wanted to start with the piece of official news, probably some news that becomes official today or very, very soon, is quarterback Mason Rudolph is back in Pittsburgh. Reportedly signing, he confirmed that was initially reported by the Fan and then confirmed later by Rudolph himself. So I got this one totally wrong, Dave. I did not think there was really any scenario in which Rudolph would return. But obviously the market has spoken loudly or really super quietly, saying there was probably very little, if anything, out there for him. And so Rudolph, we assume, is back.
Well, how the turntables. Look, I didn't think he's coming back. I thought there'd be tire marks outside of this outside facility there with him once the calendar turned to March 15th. I thought he's can't wait to get out of there, is not coming back, and would take even a minimum veteran benefit deal with another team to be a number 3 quarterback, if that's what it meant to get him out of Pittsburgh there. But look, you go back to what Omar Khan said all the way at the combine there, and brushed it off as just kind of lip service, and maybe to some degree it was at the time. But Omar said, we'll leave the door open to him. For him. We have a good relationship, or like to think we have a good relationship with him, and you never know what will happen. And obviously you get this far along in the off season, and Rudolph, there was really, was there any mention of him even visiting anywhere? I don't remember.
No, I heard no news on Rudolph's free agency.
Right. So, you get past the draft, and then obviously fast forward to the Steelers rookie mini camp where they had a couple of quarterbacks, obviously, to look at, one of them being Tanner Morgan, an undrafted free agent, the other being, who was it, Bryce Perkins there. And, they probably looked at that and said, you know what, let's give, Mason one final call and see where he's at in this process. And, you get past all the rookie mini camps at this point, and I guess Mason's phone still wasn't ringing there, and he decided to come back and to the devil that he knows. And a lot of people, I guess, are wondering where is the benefit in this for Mason Rudolph. Now, this thing has still not been made official by the team, so maybe that'll happen today or tomorrow. Obviously, probably before OTAs get underway. So at that point, a few days later, we'll find out what the contract is. I'm thinking that there's potentially a chance that this might be one of those 4-year player veteran benefit contracts, similar to the one that Zach Gentry signed earlier in the offseason. If indeed this is the case, and based on the amount of the benefit, the low amount of the benefit that Zach Gentry ended up taking advantage of, that still leaves like damn near $1 million left in that benefit for the Steelers to be able to provide that via one of those contracts with Mason Rudolph. Now, the max signing bonus in that would still be $152,500. I think because of the vested years that Rudolph is obviously, or credited seasons and accrued seasons that Rudolph's been in the league, I think the minimum salary for him would be $1.08 million there. But see, that benefit can be tacked onto that, and everything else. And basically, it would be a minimum value deal, but the highest minimum value deal he could get across the league, because no other team could offer him a 4-year, player contract, because he was not with them the previous 4 years and all like that. So this might be a little financially motivated. This also might be the devil that and this might just be the Steelers are the only team.
Right.
I mean, let's just call it what it is, what it could be. It might be the only team. So I think it'll be interesting to see once this thing is announced, and once we see the financial details related to it, to put a couple other pieces of the puzzle together. But moving past the part that neither one of us thought this would happen, I mean, a quarterback room with Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph, you got 3 guys with experience. It's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it's what Pittsburgh valued last year, to the point where they reportedly turned down offers to move and trade Mason Rudolph. And my stance this whole offseason was, I thought Pittsburgh would always want Rudolph back if for some reason he wanted to come back. I don't think Pittsburgh burned that bridge or was unhappy with the situation, obviously, but I thought Rudolph would just want to go somewhere else. And I'm not trying to say that Pittsburgh was unfair to the guy or did the guy dirty, but the reality is, Rudolph got demoted from number 2 to number 3. He went from the only quarterback on the roster to 3rd string inactive, and he probably didn't love how that all went down. And understandably so, it's a business and the team has to make the best decisions. And signing Trubisky and playing Pickett are all the correct decisions, but it was logical to think that he would just want to go somewhere new after being a backup his entire Steelers career. But with him coming back to Pittsburgh to be that quality number 3, probably the best 3rd string quarterback in the NFL, you got 3 quarterbacks on the depth chart that have, substantial in-game experience. It's a big win for the Steelers.
I think it is. And look, I mean, you can still gives you the ability to have some competition there. And this team likes to have 4 quarterbacks to start training camp. And, assuming the contract's as low as what we think it's going to be with Mason Rudolph, there's you can still have a competition there. And if you see enough in Tanner Morgan over the course of the summer, you can still go that route if you want to. And also now you're protected, from an injury to one of your other top 2 guys. And once again, have a guy there with experience in Mason Rudolph. I don't think Mason's going to, would be a guy that cause any problems in there,
No.
But now, nearly almost immediately after word started to circulate that Mason would be back, you start seeing the conversations of, well, what does this mean for Mitch Trubisky? And I think Brad from PFF was on the fan, and the discussion starting to circulate now. Does this mean anything for Mitch Trubisky, and can the team trade him, or might the team cut him? I guess the best way to start an answer to that, or start a discussion with you and I related to that, is, never say never about anything at this point. However, I'm almost pretty sure the Steelers didn't go into the offseason thinking, you know what, we'll commit to Mitch Trubisky here, but boy, if we can get to May 15th or May 16th or May 17th and get Mason Rudolph back on this under contract at a super cheap deal, then boy, we'll be in great situation to turn Mitch Trubisky loose. I have a hard time imagining that, especially the way the depth charts shook out last year. This to me just seems only depth. And then also, look, if you're in now, look, you can definitely let those 2 guys compete during training camp, right? In Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph. And if Mason, winds up being, the obvious better choice to back up Kenny Pickett, then I suppose you start having because you're not going to pay Mitch Trubisky $8 million to be the number 3 quarterback, right?
Right. It's hard to see him, if he were to lose that battle somehow, he would not be a Steeler anymore. Mitch Trubisky would not.
Now, as far as the potential trading of Mitch Trubisky, how many teams out there are going to want to acquire an $8 million salary? There might be a few, but those teams would probably have had something happen in their quarterback rooms starting now until the week 1 of the season, where they need a guy with the experience to come in and really, potentially be a starter for them, or be a legitimate, backup quarterback. And plus they'd have to have the cap, because you're talking about an $8 million 1-year rental here. Unless you were able to get something done with him with an extension with another team, which would seem unlikely. It would have to be a team that's in a situation, if you will. And on the flip side, the Steelers would have to be in a situation where either it's close or really deciding, been decided that Mason's the far superior quarterback than Mitch Trubisky. And if you got to that point, you would think that during the preseason, Mitch would, not show out well. And then you're back to the conversation of what team would want to trade for, there's so many layers to this onion, to peel back in a what if speculated, situation where Mitch would be dealt. And to me, and once again, learn not to speak in absolutes, but I really find it unlikely that Mitch Trubisky would be dealt during the offseason, unless it was just a very, very unique situation with him not looking great in offseason, Mason looking really, really good, and another team getting in a situation where they just have to have Mitch Trubisky even at $8 million.
Sure, I'm with you. I don't want to, just on the heels of me being surprised and wrong about Mason Rudolph's return, I don't want to be too declaratory and say that there's no way that Trubisky loses his job or won't be the backup come week one. But I'm with you. I find those events pretty unlikely. And again, right. Pittsburgh really valued their quarterback depth last year, top to bottom. I know it's maybe a bit different this year because there's more comfort in Kenny Pickett, a bit more of an established role, obviously, with him now being the starter and hopefully the long-term type of guy. But still, I think Pittsburgh liked having all those options in the quarterback room because, listen, if Kenny Pickett goes down for a week or longer, whatever the case is, and Trubisky comes in, you're one snap away from Mason Rudolph playing. And I really think that, let's say that one of those quarterbacks were gone. Let's say that Trubisky is traded and Rudolph comes in to replace and Tanner Morgan's now the number 2. You're one snap away from Tanner Morgan coming into a game. And I really think OCs call games differently when they know that I can't do anything that's going to potentially risk getting Mason Rudolph hurt, because if we turn to Tanner Morgan, our playbook totally waters down. It's totally changed, and our odds of winning have probably, greatly reduced even more so. So all of that is to say is that this team the entire offseason has gone in with Trubisky as the clear number 2. They decided to keep him at a pretty hefty base salary. Means they really like this guy. I don't think Rudolph is going to change that so substantially. So where 3 days ago we all sat there and said, oh yeah, Trubisky locked in number 2, good to go. And then just because Rudolph comes in, it now becomes, where Trubisky's incredibly expendable. I don't see that being the case.
Look, the only way I could see Trubisky not being on the 53 at this point, and I was wondering maybe that Mitch could potentially be someone who before. I mean, we're backing way up into January, before Rooney talked, that thinking that maybe with that salary and all, maybe that's a little bit too expensive for the Steelers. But I mean, the Steelers, with Rooney and Kwon and I quickly came to accept the fact that this team wants Mitch around, and then obviously right. Kwon saying during the combine that we'd like him around past 2023. You have to take that at face value, especially at this point, I think now within that. So the only way I see Mitch not being on the roster at this point is him getting into training camp in the preseason and just really stinking it up. And this team getting to the point where they're saying, man, Mason's got to be the number 2. And if that's the case, you just can't have a number 3 at an $8 million salary, I don't think.
Right. And at that point, you probably just cut Trubisky. You probably have no trade market, no trade value for him. So, that would be how that goes. But that's all down the road for right now. My belief is Pickett 1, Trubisky 2, Rudolph 3, the same thing it was after Pickett became the starter in week 5 last year.
Now, quite a bit about Mason at this point. How does this impact, is Tanner Morgan going to get the Chris Oladokun treatment, during because you got to get Kenny plenty of work during camp and the preseason, right?
Right. And he will still. Yeah. Somebody asked me yesterday, how many reps do you think Pickett will take in the preseason? I don't know the number, but it will still be a fair amount because he's still got things to work on, still a relatively young group, some new pieces. These guys need reps before that tough week 1 test against San Francisco.
And as far as training camp and all goes, you damn sure better have your number 2 ready.
Right. To answer the question, I think Morgan will get more reps than Oladokun had last year, which granted was basically 0 until the last 2 days of practice because it's a little bit more settled, the quarterback situation. There was that technical 3-way battle Pittsburgh kind of framed things last year. So I think Morgan will get a couple more, but obviously his reps will be very minimal.
Right. I mean, and with just 3 preseason games, how many snaps is, assuming he makes it that long, how many snaps does Tanner Morgan get? 10?
Yeah, it's like, last drive of the game in the second preseason game or, something like that. Because what happened in the Pittsburgh has always carried 4 quarterbacks, and typically that 4th guy has gotten time. But in the Ben era, it was because he had the full day, half day, off day schedule. And so on the half day and certainly on the off day, he only had 3 quarterbacks practicing, which opened up reps for that number 4. There aren't going to be any rest days, we presume, with any of these guys, Pickett, Trubisky, and Rudolph this year, and that makes it tough for the number 4 to simply see much, if any, time.
Well, I did not have on my bingo card once the 2022 season ended that we'd be spending 25 minutes on the podcast on May 17th talking about the return of Mason Rudolph. But here we are.
Yeah, I was equally as wrong, equally as surprised, but good move for Pittsburgh. It's not going to make or break their season. And obviously the best thing for Pittsburgh is that Mason Rudolph does not take a snap as a Steeler this year, not against him, but just means that Kenny Pickett stayed healthy and this team hopefully played well and everything was solid. But if he's needed, it's good to have a guy like that as that number 3, because if Rudolph was not going to be the number 3, who was going to be the number 3? Tanner Morgan, Bryce Perkins, some other, low-level vet type option. You weren't going to find a better guy that knows your system. They know him. He knows them. Than Mason Rudolph to be that third-string quarterback.
I think another kind of, we'll save this for a little bit later on down the road there once the roster's set, and we'll see what happens, possibly, I guess, with an extension with Trubisky later on in the offseason and whatnot. I mean, this team, and all this depends on, and we assume the Mason Rudolph contract will be 1 year. This team, other than Tanner Morgan right now, only has, not counting him, just one quarterback under we think one quarterback under contract for 2023 or 24.
Right, in Kenny Pickett. Yeah. Now, somebody also asked the question. I know it's super far away, but we assume Rudolph will get a 1-year deal and Trubisky entering the last year of his contract. But could you, in theory, think about Rudolph re-signing after 2023 to become the number 2, assuming Trubisky walks? I know there's a lot of assumptions I just threw into one question, but I think that's plausible. We're down the road. I'm not going to think about that at all. The NFL season can change so much in 1 year, but that's something I think that's on the table if Rudolph were to re-sign next year, knowing that he could actually become the number 2 again.
Yeah, and look, once again, we don't know what the contract is now. What if it's a 2-year,
Right. Yeah, sure. Although that would, I guess, be the same point of maybe Rudolph becomes the number 2 next year if there is a multi-year deal, knowing that, Trubisky is becoming a free agent after the season.
Now, I don't know why. I think it's stunning enough that Mason's back. I don't know why he would lock himself into a super cheap 2-year deal, but unless he just says, look, this is my best path to potentially getting on the field again at some point.
Right. So we'll see. We'll get official confirmation on that, hopefully, probably by today or tomorrow. And we'll hopefully have something to update on that contractually come Friday. But other reported, not official signings, a big one here. Been waiting on the news, thought he was going to be a Steeler, wasn't in rookie minicamp, didn't know the status, finally have an answer unofficially now. XFL star wide receiver Hakeem Butler reportedly signed his contract that comes via the XFL. Announcing it, again, not been made official by the Steelers, but that should be coming soon. Butler has confirmed the news as well. And so I know that Omar Khan had mentioned Butler by name last week, was not in rookie minicamp, still a bit unclear why. But yesterday, on his 27th birthday, a very good gift for Hakeem Butler, an NFL contract.
All right, it'll be interesting to watch this play out now. With him, a guy that's worked hard to try to get another opportunity. The last time he played in the NFL was what? 2020?
Yeah, I believe so. At least in terms of getting into a regular season game.
Right. And, definitely had a foot out of football and, got the St. Louis Battlehawks to take a chance on him. And, Bruce Gradkowski, was the offensive coordinator there, and who was Anthony Beck, the head coach, and they bought into giving him a chance, and he really shined during the XFL season, and got in the end zone. Now I think the drop's still one of the things with him. I think coming out of college into the NFL was the overall route running and the hands and the concentration, that kind of thing. But, you got to take the competition into consideration here, but he was able to do some pretty exciting things on the field. And he's a big bodied guy that can block and really looks like one of those today's, at least from, what we saw in the XFL, prototypical kind of big slot guys. And, good for him. He's got himself one last chance to show a team that maybe he can stick at the NFL level, and now he'll seemingly get a chance from starting in OTAs and on into training camp to see if he can make a roster or at least be back on a practice squad and all. But you got a pretty full room over there, right now, and you would think that if you're going to be a bottom end of the depth chart receiver for the Steelers, especially on the heels of this team, trading for Allen Robinson, and you have Calvin Austin III hopefully coming back full strength, and you got a special teams guy in Miles Boykin who gives you some a little bit of position flexibility there. I guess where I'm going with this is he better sharpen up he better bear gifts to one Danny Smith.
Yeah, for sure. But it is a crowded room. But I think the thought is just add talented people, make that room as quality as possible. Never know what injuries could occur. Never know when roles may open up. And I mean, if this team, the Steelers traditionally carry at least 6 receivers. I know that varies a bit, but 6 is a reasonable number to carry this year, correct?
Yeah, I would agree, especially if you carry just 3 running backs. You get into that, Connor Hayward discussion and the, where does Zach Gentry fit in all this, but, and how many offensive linemen are they going to carry? That could actually be as low as 8, even though it'd be kind of, we'll see. But I mean, I think when you go through this, you could absolutely map out a scenario where they did keep 6 true wide receivers.
Okay. And so you have your top 5 right now of Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, and for me, Miles Boykin as that number 5 because of the special teams value. That's the way that I drew things up on my initial 53-man roster prediction. So if you have 6, you got an open spot there at number 6. And you have some names to compete there. Anthony Miller, Gunnar Olszewski, Hakeem Butler. If any of these future guys were to show up, Des Fitzpatrick, Dan Chisena, somebody like that. So there are other names, but even just on that baseline 6, that number 6 spot is pretty much up for grabs. And of course, there is no guarantee necessarily that, Calvin Austin's going to look fantastic or Miles Boykin's going to continue his role. I think the odds are strong. Those things are going to happen. They're going to make this team. But even if you lock those guys in right now, just hypothetically, that number 6 spot is open for Butler, who does offer something kind of unique as that big slot type.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There is a chance. And to add, again, to get a quality receiver like that from the XFL, I know the NFL career has not worked out. Dude does not have a career reception in the NFL. And so he was the height, weight, speed kind of marvel, 6'5", 220, ran in the high 4.4s, and it has not translated. But, with some time, you get in the XFL, you refine your game a bit. We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. It could go well, it could go poorly, but it's good to get a talented guy with success in camp and make that room better.
I think one of the main things he has going for him is his size,
Yeah. And he's got hands and he made plays. And again, just coming off, 51 catches and 8 touchdowns in the XFL this year. I know that's lower competition, but, his game probably grew and improved. And to get that work in, to see the field when he hasn't seen the field in quite some time, to really, truly work on his game. You can work on it in practice and individually, but to really be in game environments and get those reps, they're really valuable. So, hopefully we'll see a better version of him in 2023 compared to where he was when he first entered the NFL.
All right. It'll be fun to watch for sure.
One other reported signing, again, not made official, but this has been reported by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, another XFLer coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers in cornerback Luke Barcoo, who was with the San Antonio team. He is was he drafted? I'm trying to think about if he was drafted or not, but he was, I think, undrafted out of San Diego State, had some really good ball production there, was in Jacksonville in 2020, played actually a little bit, did not go necessarily well, but he was a rookie trying to make it in the league and has kind of bounced around since and was an all XFL selection at cornerback for San Antonio. And reportedly, Barcoo had a couple different offers from, I believe, Dallas and Cleveland, and of course, Pittsburgh. And I think because his head coach there in the XFL was Hines Ward, probably is a good way to push him to Pittsburgh. So there's another signing for the Steelers.
And that's a long kid, too, that plays press and on the outside, right?
Yeah, he's about 6 foot with 32-inch arms. He was pretty lanky coming out of college, listed a $175. He still looks pretty lanky right now, probably added a bit of weight, but he's a guy that, was a receiver in high school, and you kind of see that translate on tape in terms of the ball skills. He had 9 interceptions his final season at San Diego State, and so he's a guy that can, find the ball, make plays on the ball, and so he kind of fits all those things Pittsburgh looks for in terms of kind of a longer corner, taller corner, somebody comfortable. He didn't do, to me on tape, he didn't do a ton of like true press man, but in terms of being rolled up in tight man coverage, really patient in terms of not opening up his hips and waiting for the receiver to, stem and kind of declare his release. He's a really patient corner, and it's a guy that can make plays on the football. So if you got some size, have some length, have some man coverage ability, who can take the football away, you're a Pittsburgh Steelers type of corner.
What did you get a chance to look at his tackling?
Yeah, I did. He's got 1-2 in willingness. There's some hip power on tape. I think he goes too high. It causes him to miss, and he's a bit kind of unrefined in terms of being kind of throws more shoulders than he does wrap up. And he will go too high. But there are instances where he has the willingness at 1-2. He will come down. He will hit you. I think he's going to be an inconsistent player. I think you saw that on his tape throughout the XFL. And I think just his overall profile says somebody that's going to have some really good moments and probably some kind of ugly moments as well.
Okay, so maybe a practice squad candidate.
Yeah, I think this cornerback room is looking pretty crowded, and some of those guys may, get weeded out in terms of Witherspoon and Pierre's on the bubble, but I think Barcoo probably best as a practice squad type of guy.
All right.
One other piece of news here, not a reported signing, but a reported visit that we assume has come and gone with Kwon Alexander, former Pro Bowl linebacker with the Jets last season. Reportedly came in for a visit. I think he came into town Monday night. I assume that visit occurred Tuesday. And I was looking at his Instagram page this morning, and it appears he's back home. And so does not seem a deal is in place and has been agreed to, but the visit probably has taken place there. So what do you make of the reported visit of linebacker Kwon Alexander?
I think this is another instance of no stone left unturned, right? Them looking at any given possibility of adding guys that have some experience that they think can make the 90 or 53, however you want to look at it, potentially better here. He was a guy that was with the Jets on a 1-year, I think, a veteran benefit deal last year. You look at quick run through of his tape, a guy that's definitely not afraid to smack people. I think one of the big highlights last year was him separating Saquon Barkley from a football there. Other nice hits in there, able to play downhill. A physical downhill player, but has a lot more finesse to him than, say, and a Landon Roberts, who's more of a I'm going 90 to nothing downhill and just going to crash up everything. He just has a little bit more athleticism, or a lot more athleticism, really. I think ability to change direction and all. Definitely would be better in coverage than a guy than, say, a Landon Roberts, and young enough still, even though he hasn't played a lot of special teams since being in the NFL. He would probably have to understand that he would have to do some of that with the next team that he does end up signing with. And it's probably, we'll see what the transaction wire says today. You would think, whenever this next group of transactions is announced, whether it be today or tomorrow or by the end of the week or whenever, that if indeed they were going to sign him, he'd be part of that. But there's been obviously no word since the visit that's going to come to fruition. But you look at his tape, and I would definitely be on board on adding him on a 1-year minimum deal.
Yeah, I think he can still play. Only 28, played in all 17 games for the Jets last season, starting 12. I think what he could potentially offer is that coverage ability. I think you got some guys that can play downhill and play the run, and Mark Robinson and Landon Roberts, but do you have cover guys? Roberts not that guy. Robinson probably will never be that guy, and Holcomb, to me, is the best of that current group, but even his coverage skills are average, I would say. And so to bring somebody in,
and he's coming off a foot injury too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Pittsburgh's kind of betting on some of these medicals with Robinson and Cole Holcomb. But I think, Alexander, who can move a bit, play out in space. I don't know exactly how that would look if he were to be signed. I think this would be a thing where you're adding competition and trying to maybe really create some specialized sub-package type roles. And obviously Holcomb's contract would suggest he'd be a 3-down type of guy. So there's some messiness there. But, I think Alexander would potentially be that best coverage guy if he were to sign. But as of right now, we're not getting indications that's happened.
The Steelers love those cast-off inside linebackers, don't they?
I really do, man. They love signing the free agent guys with a bit of pedigree and a bit of kind of background they know on him. And so he was only a 4th-round pick. I kept thinking he was a higher draft pick than 4th round, but he is a Pro Bowler. He's been a long-established guy, and so I could see the intrigue there. At some point, they're going to have to just draft somebody and really try to invest that way. But, I get the Alexander allure. We'll just see if a deal actually occurs.
Yeah, and we'll sit and wait. We should know something. If it's going to happen, it would happen by the end of this week, you would think, with OTAs starting next week.
Right, and if he
don't they have one? How many spots open now?
One. If you assume Rudolph, Butler, and Barcoo all signed or will sign, they will have one spot remaining.
And that's with Manny Jones addition and Wren to the to the IR, right?
Correct. Yeah, they just cancel each other out. So one open spot. So I assume they're going to fill that.
And you're not counting the Iowa State undrafted guy, right?
Yeah, I assume Downing. I mean, he never signed a contract.
Right.
The team never. They said the 6 guys they agreed to, and you add Alfonso Graham to that. But even if you add all those guys, still with one spot open. And so I assume that will be filled by Tuesday, which is the first day of OTAs. Will it be Alexander? Will it be somebody else? We'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, Dave, anything else to talk about from a Pittsburgh Steelers perspective? I think those are many things to talk about, but those are probably all the things to really discuss.
A lot more things that to talk about than we thought might be the case when we ended the Monday show. But I think we've covered most of it there.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, let me open up the email machine here and see what we have. Babette Landine writes in, "Hi, Dave and Alex, longtime listener since 2013, back to the days when we did the GoFundMe so Alex could go to Mobile. All right, here's my question. What is it going to take for the Steelers to allow you all to have a staff member at the weekly press conference with over 126,000 followers on Twitter alone? You guys should certainly be included as major media outlet. I feel like your questions would be intelligent and thoughtful and represent your listeners well. I know it's more of a rhetorical question, but maybe we could get a Twitter campaign started. What you think? Thanks for your time. Peace and love and prayers." All right, Babette. Look, we've talked about if we pushed hard enough on this, I think maybe we could get somebody in the room there, but we're not well liked. I mean, I'm just going to say we're just not well liked in the local Pittsburgh media circles, and we have accepted that for quite a long time now. And really, we have moved past that, to be quite honest with you. And would it be nice maybe to have somebody in there? Yeah, but I don't think it. I mean, we can still, and hopefully we've done a good job still covering the team the way we do things now. We've got quite a system that we've put together. We've even added 2 new people to the staff in the last 24 hours. And I think we have 25 in total as part of the Depot crew. And once again, if we pushed hard enough, could we probably get somebody in there? Yes. But is it worth it overall? They don't, most of them in that room don't want us in there. So
right.
That's about the best way I can answer that. And I mean, we're not mad at it, peace and love to all them in that room. But that's just the way things are.
And asking those thoughtful and intelligent questions might be one reason why it's a difficulty for us to get in there, because you don't want to ask the really hard questions to put some of these guys on the spot. Might be perceived as some sort of threat. But yeah, as I echo everything that Dave said, and right now our focus is on some other things in terms of we've done a great job this year expanding our kind of draft access in terms of having crews at the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, at the Combine. I know we've talked about maybe doing some pro day stuff in the future. So that's kind of been our focus. I think we still have an in-person presence in a lot of ways. Of course, we're at training camp and offering those reports that I think you guys really enjoy. So we still have a lot of boots on the ground in other ways, just not currently in that way that you're asking about.
And look, Bert Lawton and Michael, they're top two PR people over there. I've had real cordial conversations with both of them over the years, and push come to shove, if I need something, they've given us some information over the years. They've allowed us to be in some of the Zoom calls during COVID and all like that. And I'm sure they probably caught some hell from that, from the local media, from that happening. So I don't want to say that their people have mistreated us or anything like that. Once again, I've got Bert's phone number and email, and same with Michael, and they've allowed us some concessions over the years and all like that. And once again, if we pushed hard enough with them, and we could probably get a seat in there. It's just it's something that we just don't view as a big priority.
Yeah, I'm with you. Good answer there, Dave.
James writes in, great podcast and website as always. I can't recall how and when second contracts work. Hypothetical situation. Let's say Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., and Corey Trice all become very good starters, equally good at their positions, and the Steelers want to keep them all. Does it matter what he asked, what does it matter what round they are drafted in when they can get their second contract? He says, I think I remember something like the first round picks are 5-year contracts and the rest are 4-year contracts, but then you have to wait X amount of years to renegotiate, etc. The reason I'm asking, is there a chance that Joey Porter Jr. being selected in the second round gets to his second contract faster than Broderick Jones because Porter was selected in the second round? Any difference for Trice? Okay. Great questions, James. First and foremost, all draft picks come to the team with 4-year contracts. Now, the difference with your first round pick is that contract comes with a 5th-year option. All right. Now, none of these draft picks and no rookies can renegotiate their contract until after the 3rd season, period. No matter what round you're in, you have to play on your current contract at least 3 years before you can sign any sort of an extension or anything along those lines there. So that's the first rule related. And that even goes for, look, they could get after the 3rd season with Broderick Jones if they wanted to, or with Kenny Pickett, for example, and say, we've got to re-up these guys now before the 5th-year option decision, anything, and they could sign those guys to extension after their 3rd season. So that answers that part of the question there. The part where he asked, is there a chance that Joey Porter Jr. gets a second contract before Broderick Jones? Absolutely, there's a chance in that. And because look, once again, you hope Broderick Jones gets into a situation where you're picking up that 5th-year option with him prior to the start of his 4th year. And at that time, you're probably looking at Joey Porter Jr. would then be going into potentially his final contract. And instead of running the risk of having to use the franchise tag after his 4th season, let's hope that we're having the conversations that the Steelers are in a situation after Joey Porter's 3rd season that this team is looking hard and heavy at extending Joey Porter Jr. and thus giving him a deal before Broderick Jones knew. You want both those guys to hit second contracts. How nice would it be, Alex, to see Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton all getting second contracts with the Steelers?
Yeah, I mean, that's ideal. You want, if you can get 3 starters out of a draft class, you know, that's kind of the general feel from scouts and front offices. You get 3 starters in a draft class, you feel good. If you get 4, you're really happy. And Pittsburgh has the potential to get 4 and maybe even more. Throw in Trice, and you know, if Herbig were to, I think, change positions to more of an off-ball role, there's starter potential there. So,
and Darnell, we you know,
let's go. I say with a 4th, yeah. You know, with Jones, with Porter, with Benton, and then Washington. You know, Washington may always, you know, be kind of that number 2 tight end, but play almost starter type snaps. Point is, you get, you know, heavy contributors. You're looking at a 2017 type draft class all over again.
Okay, Alex, coming across the Twitter wire. It happened before the show ended here. Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Steelers have informed veteran cornerback Ahkello Witherspoon that they will be releasing him. So show me your shocked face.
I think we mentioned this throughout the offseason. Obviously, I think I even mentioned this a couple of days ago about a potential, if there was a time to release your veteran post-rookie minicamp, pre-OTA, typically is when these moves occur in Pittsburgh and around the NFL. So yeah, certainly not shocked by this. Witherspoon, I wrote in the article, a career defined by inconsistency. This was a guy that when they traded for him in 2021, didn't play. Looked like the trade was going to be bad. Comes on strong late in the season, was honestly this team's best cornerback the last month of 2021, 2022. Totally different story. Struggles against Jamar Chase, has a hamstring injury, comes back for the Eagles game, gets torched by A.J. Brown on IR, does not play another snap this season, just has never found consistency in his career. Dude has some talent. He's got athleticism, has, you know, unique size for the position, but just has never been able to be a trustworthy, consistent, steady guy. And is a hard road to lead to be an NFL corner when you're that inconsistent.
Yeah, something I've talked about all offseason. It looked like this was going to end up being what would happen with him. I thought it would happen a little bit earlier in the offseason here, but you get through the rookie mini camps and, you know, obviously you get through the draft and add a couple of corners. Once they added a couple of corners there, and it just the writing has been on the wall for this since last season, him missing all those games, that kind of thing there. So I am the least shocked person about this. I think the only thing was the timing of it. Just I thought it was going to happen by now. Here we are with this, and you save $4 million in salary cap space prior to top 51 replacement there. This, in my opinion, was the right move.
And a no-brainer move because,
right.
Listen, this guy was not going to have a role defensively when you replace Cam Sutton with Patrick Peterson. You have Joey Porter Jr. You draft, James Pierre's in that mix. Levi Wallace is going to play. Corey Trice, what you get from him, we'll see. Witherspoon was not going to be a contributor on special teams. There really was no home for the guy. So when you sit there and say this guy really has no path to making it, you're going to save a bunch of money. Do right by him. Let him go find a new team. Do right by your own team by sitting there and say, let's put the group together that really could compete and have a role and value for us. So this is a no-brainer type decision.
And look, did you want to take him to, knowing he's probably not going to be in the plans, did you want to take him to OTAs and run the risk of him getting injured and having to go on IR? And, look, the writing was on the wall with this. And once again, probably I thought it was going to happen several weeks ago, but it was probably a good bet to make that he was going to be gone by the start of OTAs.
Yeah, I'm guessing the timing was let's get Porter, Trice into rookie minicamp, make sure they're healthy through rookie minicamp just in case something unfortunate were to occur. And then once everybody's good, before OTAs begin, you go out there and you give Witherspoon the heave-ho. So I think that's the reason for the timing of the move.
I would agree. Let's see here. Any other final thoughts on that?
Just, I know we had this conversation before, and I may write about it sometime soon. Just a busy offseason with so much roster turnover, so many moves. I mean, how many guys that were not Steelers in 2022 are going to be on this roster come week 1 in 2023? It's going to be like 25 different people that are going to be on this team to start this year that weren't Steelers a year ago.
Yeah, look, you're going to they're churning, and they needed to. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. They really are churning the bottom end of that roster. And they really needed to. So the churning continues.
Yeah, and it may continue even more as we work our way towards the summer.
Look, I mean, and there's no need to do it now, I don't think. But, guys, like Montravius Adams, Gunnar Olszewski, some of those under $3 million guys, those guys could get very well churned as well.
And you wonder about Kevin Dotson, not maybe from a cut perspective right now, but his future perspective. So in terms of, former starters who may be on their way out, you kind of focus now on Dotson and where his future lies now that Witherspoon is officially gone.
Yeah, that's another one as well, too. All right. At least that news came in before we wrapped up the show.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Ian. We should say wrap before. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm through all of the emails that we have here, Alex. So I think we can wrap this up.
All right. We'll come back on Friday. We'll have another roundtable with, I think, tentatively scheduled right now with Jonathan Heitritter, Josh Carney, and Tyler Wise to kind of do, I guess, kind of one part, maybe draft, thoughts. I know it's been a little bit since the draft, but to kind of hear what those guys have to say, maybe just kind of some thoughts about the 2023 season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So should have some extra voices on the show come Friday.
All right. Look forward to that. All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the, what was I at? The ad-free or donation, and then ad-free button up right navigational bar as well too. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.